Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living your life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? We are beginning a new year, so let's put the excuses aside and let's get started. Welcome to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone, and welcome to the year 2021. There is no better time to get started with your spiritual expansion than right now. And this podcast series that we are in right now is designed to help you do just that. So this will be the fourth installment in this new series, which is entitled, What the Heck is Meant By? Today's episode is what the heck is meant by meditative practice. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive right in. To stay true to the format, let's begin with what a meditative practice is not. A meditative practice is not simply sitting and relaxing, nor is it meditation itself. And this is where it gets a little confusing for some people. If it is not meditation, then why is it called a meditative practice? And what's the difference anyway? I assure you these questions are about to be answered. Let's break it down and get into it so we can become more clear on what the difference is and what meditative practices actually are. The term meditative here refers to the focused concentration and awareness needed during an actual exercise or practice. Practice refers to the act of actively and consciously working on or towards something. So then a meditative practice is an active and conscious exercise that includes concentration, mental focus, and awareness. With a meditative practice, we are trying to accomplish something. We're working on something. It's internal work, it's mental work, it's energetic work. These are all meditative practices. Meditation, however, if you remember from the previous episode, is when we do nothing. We aren't trying to accomplish anything. We're not working on anything. We're doing literally nothing. And you may be asking yourself, why is it important to differentiate between meditation and meditative practices? Does it really matter? The answer to the question is actually yes, it does. And the reason it does is because it allows us to better focus our intention on what we're trying to accomplish, or in the case of meditation, not trying to accomplish. Intention is a critical piece of the puzzle when dealing with spirituality and various practices. Much like it is when you're working with internal energies and things like martial arts. So now that we have a better idea of what a meditative practice is, why would we even need to use meditative practices? Well, the answer is simple. Meditative practices are extremely important because they help us to create a solid foundation and proper framework for meditation and other advanced spiritual practices. So, spiritual practices allow us to be better equipped to enter into effective meditation. They also allow us to work on other spiritual focuses, such as internal alchemy, breath work, internal energy, and so on. We could look at them as being prerequisites for effective meditation. And no, they aren't absolutely necessary in order to meditate, but they are extremely helpful. And using them to prepare can save you years, if not decades, of frustration and empty practice. Meditative practices in general incorporate mental tools such as visualization, concentration, contemplation, mental focus, having awareness in your physical body, counting breaths, reciting mantras, sutras, or affirmations, and so much more. These practices help us to develop the mind into a powerful and useful tool or servant that we can then use masterfully. This is instead of allowing the mind to be our master. These practices allow us to discipline the mind in a very positive and productive manner. So this helps you recognize when something is a meditative practice. If you are engaging in visualization, specific concentrated focus, contemplation, mental focus, awareness, counting breaths, thinking, or repeating anything, these are all signs of a meditative practice, because in actual meditation, you do not engage in any of those things. And this presents a very clear distinction between meditation and meditative practices. Please allow me to present a simple example of a meditative practice and what makes it what it is. We'll use the example of going for a walk. That's simple enough, easy enough for most people to do, right? Going for a walk in nature is a wonderful and beneficial practice all on its own, and it has the opportunity of offering such benefits as stress relief, relaxation, recentering oneself, and so on. But just going for a walk does not make it a meditative practice. Walking around, looking at nature, enjoying nature, taking a few deep breaths here and there, that does not make it a meditative practice. That makes it a very enjoyable and beneficial walk. What we want to do is to turn this beneficial walk into a meditative practice. In order to do so, we'll need to incorporate some sort of mental and most likely physical, because we're up and moving around, awareness and focus into our walk. What would that look like? Well, in addition to strolling through the beauty of nature, you need to add something more than simply the enjoyment of nature. You may focus your awareness on your breath and breathe in a very particular way. You may be breathing from your abdomen, for example. You may hold a sense of mental awareness for each and every step that you take, feeling your feet as it makes contact with the ground and then releases. And you keep your mental focus upon that throughout the entire walk without allowing any distracting thoughts to interrupt. Making sure that the mind does not stray or become distracted is an important of a meditative practice. So if you are going to focus on abdominal breathing, or diaphragmatic breathing as it's called, you might hold your hands on your lower abdomen, and as you walk around enjoying nature, you stay very, very aware and focused mentally and physically on the act of breathing from the abdomen, feeling the lower abdomen rise and fall with each and every breath without being distracted. The same would hold true if you were taking each step with a sense of conscious awareness, feeling the physical sensations in your body and remaining aware of the act of walking itself throughout the entire walk, not allowing the mind to stray or become distracted. Maybe you have a favorite mantra that you like to repeat. So you would repeat this mantra from the moment you begin your walk to the moment you end, without the mind straying onto other thoughts during the walk. One meditative practice like this that I used to do was reciting the Heart Sutra. And I would recite that for up to 5 hours straight without stopping. without allowing my mind to wander or become distracted. And if you stop to consider the act of repeating a mantra for up to 5 hours straight, we see the challenge in this, right? Because the mind likes to wander. And that's why these are called practices, because it requires practice to attain success. You could even incorporate something like being aware of proper posture as you walk, making sure that all of the alignments in your body are correct with every step you take, not allowing your mind to ever lose a conscious sense of awareness for all of the postural alignments, as well as your feet making contact with and leaving the ground through the entire walk from start to finish. In a previous episode in this series, I covered mindfulness. Mindfulness is a very specific set of authentic meditative practices. One such practice allows us to observe the ego and to realize that it is a product of the mind and not our real voice. We come to realize through direct personal experience with these meditative practices that we are not the ego. It's not coming into direct conflict with it. It is instead allowing us to observe how it works and then coming to the realization that it is not who we are. It is then through this meditative practice that we come to understand that the ego is then indeed the false self. This alone begins to take power away from the ego, and it allows us to shift from ego to essence. And this is how and why some meditative practices have the potential power to allow us to awaken, either a major awakening or a minor awakening. Without these practices, to truly observe and to have the direct personal experience with things like how the ego really works and that it is not truly us, all you have is your opinion or conjecture. And while those things may make you feel good, your opinion is not necessarily the truth. Your conjecture is certainly not the truth. Meditative practices allow us to directly interact with the truth. So, in regards to the ego, meditative practices alone may be enough to dissolve the ego. Oftentimes, they are only the beginning, laying the foundation for us to completely do so. Allow the ego to dissolve through meditation itself. Because remember, when we are in meditation and we transcend the mind, we enter a state of no mind. And when there is no mind, there is no ego. Ego isn't a product of the brain, it is a product of the mind. And when we go beyond the mind, there is no ego. However, there is still a brain. And when you engage these practices and you have your own direct personal experience through these practices, you come to know such things to be true. Meditative practices come in all shapes and sizes, from those that are relatively simple to those that are incredibly complex. Likewise, some meditative practices can offer you rather quick results, while others may take months or years or even decades to yield the results you're looking for, to offer a sense of success. Some of these practices may seem rather enjoyable, and others may seem incredibly daunting. It may depend on the practices that you are engaging, and it may depend upon the individual in their own unique experience. It's noteworthy to acknowledge here that much of the fake New Age spirituality that is based on the opinion and conjecture of the ego is focused primarily on things feeling good, especially in the moment. And you usually find that dissolves away and leaves no lasting results. Whereas the meditative practices of real, authentic traditions will seem quite daunting and tedious at times, very challenging. They don't always feel good, especially when you take a true, honest look at yourself. Sometimes that can be very unsettling. It can be difficult. And we have to have the strength and the courage to persevere. Patience and perseverance are two very important parts of meditation and meditative practices. If the practices you are engaging do not require a sense of patience or perseverance, chances are they're fake. As one final example, over the years I've taught my martial arts students a technique known as Damo's Cave. Some call this the dojo of the heart. There are many names that the practice goes by, but the practice is the practice, and it's rooted in an authentic meditative practice. And while many refer to this type of practice as meditation, it is not actually meditation because the mind is very active. Therefore, it is a meditative practice. There are also some practices that begin in a meditative practice and just kind of gradually shift into actual meditation. For instance, if I am seated in a meditative posture and I go inward and I am focusing on matching the energy rising and falling with my breath, in other words, bringing energy up through the body and then down through the body with my breaths, this would be a meditative practice. Now, if I do that long enough that it starts to happen without any conscious thought, any effort whatsoever being made by myself, by my mind, then I am able to shift from the practice of making that happen into meditation while that's actually happening in my body. And I think this illustrates quite clearly for us how a meditative practice is when we're engaged in doing something, trying something. And meditation itself is when we are doing absolutely nothing. So remember that the importance of this is not in knowing the difference as much as it is using that knowledge, putting that knowledge into action, which is something else we do with a meditative practice. First, we learn about it, we get the instruction, we understand how it works, and then we actually put that knowledge into action. Therefore, we gain the experience of that, which all results in the wisdom. So we want to make sure that we don't allow ourselves to become complacent just because we know of this, we understand it now. The idea is we use this in a way that allows us to set our intention correctly. So we can set our intention upon whether it is going to be a meditative practice or a meditation before we enter either of those things in order to align us mentally with what we are about to engage in. You may think it's a very trivial thing, but I can assure you that over the years, I have found this to be of tremendous value for not only myself, but many of those I have taught. So now you know what the heck is meant by a meditative practice. I hope this will aid you in your practices and allow you to become more effective and more efficient when you are involved in these practices. Clarity helps us so much in what we are doing. It helps us to set our intention. It helps us to understand better what we are looking to accomplish, to enter into these practices with something concrete instead of just opinion or conjecture. Please make sure to visit me at www.expansionmastery.com. You can get an autographed copy of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. You can grab the newly revised and expanded ebook while you're there. Look at some of the posts, blog posts that I've put up, so on and so forth. There's all kinds of great stuff there. Please check it out and make sure that you share these podcasts and hit the likes and subscribes and all that social media stuff. That helps us out. Remember, remember, we are trying to help people awaken. We are trying to help this consciousness shift continue. We can't allow it to lose steam. I need your help to do that, and I appreciate every single effort that all of you make. Until next time, my friends, I wish you the very best in your practices and your life. Take care.